Hey, welcome in.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast.
We are here coming to you live.
The Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. You only win a Super Bowl 2 times every 5 years, right? Oh! The warm-up act is over. Let's bring in Melissa Etheridge, massive Chiefs fan. Melissa,
Super Bowl champion, 2-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
And he picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score!
and we'll see you next week. But until then, as always, go Chiefs.
Welcome into the Tuesday edition, the Stuesday edition of Arrowhead Addict. I am Sterling Holmes, joined by Brisco, at JB Brisco, myself at Homestretch KC. He is wearing your grandma's cardigan. Great KC hat. I am rocking some pink with some buttons that are probably too many buttons undone. That's how you know the weather is warming up, baby. Brisco, how you doing?
I'm great, and I do think that we both look like there is like a sort of buddy cop kind of movie where we go like defraud some elderly people, to like maybe pay for like someone's cancer treatment or something. We can have like an earnest reason that we go kind of Breaking Bad style and
To
then
pay Trey Smith.
That's perfect. Well, let's do it to pay Nick Bolton. Let's do it for the kid.
Nick Bolton. Yeah, let's do it to pay Nick Bolton.
We need to raise millions of dollars for Clark Hunt's cash budget. And so I'm going to go talk to all those sweet grannies about cardigans. You're going to go around and talk to all those old fellas about those days, those long days out in the yard, that we're both putting in. I feel like we have something here that we could really use to cause some harm, I guess. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah. But it's for a good cause. It's for the
Nick
Chiefs
Bolton.
to keep Nick Bolton and
Exactly.
potentially Trey Smith. It's for a good cause. Let's be real now. I'm dying. Send help.
That's going to endear you to the olds.
And then we take their money. That's how it works. All right.
We're just old souls is what it really is. There's just a couple of old souls talking about another old soul, Nick Bolton.
Speaking of old souls, that's Travis Kelce. Brett Veach spoke today. Andy Reid spoke briefly today. This was basically their end-of-season presser since they decided they weren't going to do one, which, lovely. Great job, guys. I'm not trying to be too rude, but also they do this, and then about 5 minutes into it, they say, okay, hurry up. We only got a couple questions left, which is awesome when the entire time they're doing this, the service there absolutely blows, so you're just getting bits and pieces. Great job, Chiefs. Love that. Great job. Really appreciate that, everyone. That was a lovely job on the back end. Makes our job very easy on radio for 4 hours live. Thank you, guys. But Andy spoke today. Brett Veach spoke. And by the way, this wasn't even on because Brett Veach, the Chiefs decided not to have their microphones on in time on the YouTube page, the streaming. The first 2 questions were the best 2 questions. Lovely. Thank you, guys. Again, appreciate it. So Brett Veach actually had 2 good questions, 2 good answers. One, it sounds like Travis Kelce's coming back for one more season. He all but said that. They're acting like he's coming back one more year. They say there's no deadline, which we all know either way would be March 14th, either way because of some of the contract kick-ins. Sounds like he's going to play on his current contract, aka finish out the 1 year left. Whether your thoughts are happy, sad, because it's a lot of money for a tight end who's probably not going to be the guy he still once was, doesn't matter. Sure seems like Travis Kelce's back one more year and, quote, fired up. That's what they said in the the sit down, the outro meetings they had at the end of season. So sounds like Travis Kelce's coming back one more year. I guess let's start there. Did you take anything away? Did you learn anything new from that particular talking point of Travis Kelce and Brett Veach sounding like one more year's in the cards for 87?
Yeah, and I mean, I've been under that assumption with varying degrees of confidence since he signed that original deal that you mentioned, right? Signs the 2-year deal before this last season. At that point, I thought, hey, 2 years, play it out. Like, not that he needs the money, but get the money. And also that on some level there, like just with who we know Travis Kelce to be, I think that was the plan. And I think on some level that was the commitment. Now, look, he could air quotes here, break that commitment. And I don't think it would exactly be the end of the world for anyone. He would still be well within his rights to do that. But I think that made sense as the baseline, the expectation for me. As the season goes on, you see the wear and tear, and even you mentioning there, that, like, he's not going to be the exact same guy that we've seen over recent years. I even think here's my big picture take. So to answer your actual question, I don't think it moved anything significantly for me other than now after I was 60-40 before the Super Bowl and 75 or maybe 70-30 after. Now I'm 80-20 with he's coming back, right? Like, I'm still going to reserve that little bit just in case. But the one thing about this season for Travis Kelce and also for his future that kind of bums me out is that I think he was better than he looked this year in better circumstances. If the Chiefs could have run the offense they were planning on running, I don't think we'd be talking about Travis Kelce as the diminished player that he was last year, at least not quite in the same way, not in quite such confident terms. He could have had his exact stat line in a more high-flying offense where Rashee Rice is the first guy, the first option most of the time, where Hollywood Brown is helping you stretch the field and also is there for the entirety of the season, and then you still have Xavier Worthy come around in the back half. I think in the offense the Chiefs wanted to run, Travis Kelce would have had a nice season this year, as opposed to a bit of a frustrating one, perhaps. He was still arguably, like, I think he was rightfully the second best tight end in the AFC. So he gets his Pro Bowl nod because Brock Bowers was better. That's okay. Travis Kelce is still a really good, really useful tight end. The problem is that he's not an X receiver anymore. Not like not EX, but like the letter X, like your outside standalone receiver. The Chiefs have let him be that guy for so much of his last decade or so that makes the offense look different. His usage is different. I'd be happy to have him back on that cap hit. They ought to stretch it out over 5 years if they want and just make it nice and smooth. And he's getting all that money this year anyway, so no sweat there. The cap's going to go up again in a few years. I mean, it goes up every year. It's going to go up big again in a few years. Stretch out a few $1 million. Don't worry about the cap hit. Enjoy having one more year of Travis Kelce. I'm perfectly happy with that.
Yeah, and what it comes down to, this is who I think he is. It's the yak ability that is gone, but I do wonder if knowing that your final season is before you, if there's something to that, if there's something to understanding that this could be my last game, I could get injured and I could be completely done. I don't think he had that thought process this year, right? I don't think that was in the cards. And I liken it actually to his brother. It's different. It's hard to justify and judge sinners. But he had a year when Jason Kelce thought he was going to retire. He's like, I don't have it anymore. I just feel like I'm done. I'm worn down. I'm tired. Well, what actually happened was then he came back and had a great 2/3 year stretch to end his career. He ended up playing at least 1 year longer than he thought he was. People forget he was going to retire actually the year prior too as well. He had been rumblings of that for a while. He just didn't feel like the same guy. But when he thought it was almost his last hurrah, what happened? Well, he went into every single game, every season, and just every play almost, acting like it could be his last. And the results spoke for themselves. I think if Travis Kelce understands that this could be his last game, his last season, he knows that in front of him. Not the hypotheticals this year of, maybe it could be, maybe not my last year. We'll see. We'll find out. If he knows this is his final year, it's almost like David Ortiz in baseball. Ortiz was on a downward slide, and then he goes, this is my final year, and crushed it. Albert Pujols. Yeah, you know what? I'm on a downward slide. Final year, trade me to the Cardinals. All of a sudden, he gets to 703, and then there's rumblings. Should I come back more? When players and athletes have the understanding that this is my final time, but the final time I'm ever going to do this, they get that youth back in them. They get a little extra adrenaline pumping through those veins, and they leave a lasting impression. And so I think Travis Kelce can do that given the opportunity for one more season with that understanding. Yeah, we'll see. Again, I don't think he's going to be that 1,200-yard guy, but I think he could be what he did this year with more touchdowns. I want to see the snap count go down because signed and given extension to Noah Gray. Issue was a lot of the tight end 3 was just decimated with injuries with Jody Fortson, Anthony Fasano, I believe at one point, Peyton Hendershot, and
Berkser showed up. Jared Wiley, they invested in. They Chiefs tried. They extended Noah Gray and they drafted Wiley, and And this is still like one of the most decimated groups in the team this year. It's brutal.
So I think that's what it's going to come down to. I think those players I mentioned, again, most were obviously baseball, but I do think there can be some similarities when it is your final season. And you're right, the Chiefs did not have him being the 97 reception guy. That's why they signed Noah Gray. They brought in more tight ends. They drafted a tight end. But when Rasheed went down and Hollywood went down and then Jared Wiley went down, things changed, plans changed, and Travis Kelce was thrust back into the limelight for one more season. I do want to talk again about the combine and some things that were said today. Brett Veach spoke about Trey Smith. He said that they're having good dialogue, which that is the most GM speak thing of all time. They're having good dialogue. He is, quote, a priority. And he also said at the very, very tail end, which made me laugh very hard, it felt like a throwaway line. He's like, yeah, we're optimistic we could potentially get something done. And it was the least optimistic anyone has ever sounded, saying the words, we are optimistic about potentially getting something done.
Yeah. Here's where I'm going to give Veach some credit, and then also where we can, point and smirk and nod and understand what's happening here. I do believe that they are making a legitimate effort to make a legitimate offer to Trey Smith. I think they want to, and I'm sure they have this already actually, but they have to have what their own best offer could be, and to be able to say to Trey Smith, this is not we're not asking you to be the 25th highest paid guard here, but maybe the structure's a little funky. Maybe the length of the deal has something that benefits one side or the other. To counter and make it about a player that you haven't mentioned yet, I don't know what the Chiefs' best offer to Nick Bolton is, but I don't think it's going to. I'm confident it's not something that Nick Bolton will forego free agency for, right? I think if you're the Chiefs, I think you would have to get the Trey Smith deal done before he hits full free agency, which is asking him to give up a lot of leverage. And if you're saying, hey, player, give up a lot of leverage and we'll pay you a little less than the open market is offering you, that is, of course, a very, very difficult sell for the player who's also about to make his first real money in the NFL. Look, Trey Smith is a sixth-round pick, makes more money than me doing all that, right? But, in terms of NFL money, he's about to have not only generational wealth, market resetting wealth at that position, as opposed to being a sixth-round rookie who's had a very short career. And in terms of NFL players, he's making almost as little as you can. He's got a huge bag coming. I saw your hand come up on the financials of it all, but I think the Chiefs will make an offer that is respectful. You know what I mean? Not like, hey, take a 50% pay cut. 50% pay cut. We'd love to have you back. I think they're going to make a real offer. I don't think it's going to be the best offer, and I don't think Trey Smith should take something less than the best offer. But they're able to say, hey, little structured deal, a little angle of all of this here and there, this year, that year. We're really going to ask you to take $1.5 million less each year over the course of this deal. We will guarantee you this part, and then you're going to make it back being in commercials with Patrick. I think that's the path they'd like to present. I don't think it's going to be good enough. That's my guess right now.
Yeah, because I looked this up today. He had made, I think it was about $2.5 million so far on his rookie contract. Again, that sounds great, but
great podcasting salary.
Great podcasting salary, but is that great for when you're getting you're blocking 300-pound men for your living, especially when half that money is taxes, money's going to your agent. When you look at that contract, you break it down, he's probably made close to $1 million, maybe. That's great. I'm not trying to be like, oh no, poor Trey Smith, but in the grand scheme of the NFL, he has been worth so much more than that. I don't even think the Chiefs can come particularly close to what the Bears will offer on the free agent market. I think, again, the Bears are the team that I'm pointing to, and I don't know if the Chiefs should. Do I think the Chiefs, could they offer the 18, 19 mil, maybe even cresting the 20 mil range? I think they could, and I think they even can get away with it. But once you start getting to that 22, 23, 24 mil, which is a realistic possibility, I don't think the Chiefs should entertain that. I love Trey Smith, but does he fit the Chiefs' offense? I keep saying this because we all agree Trey Smith is awesome, but he's a run blocker first and foremost. That is his strength. He still has some question marks in pass protection. That's not me taking a shot. That's just how he's built. He still has a few more penalties than you would like in pass protection as well. Again, this is not taking a shot. This is just the reality. Do you want to pay that if you're Kansas City and get money tied up with him, with Creed Humphrey, and whatever you're going to do on the left side at left tackle? Not only that, you still have Joe Tooney, which we kind of assume is going to at least be back for one more season.
I do.
One more is back this year as well. And then you have to realize, okay, is paying guard that much money, is that better? Or is keeping Nick Bolton, is that better? Is keeping Nick Bolton and Tershawn Wharton and maybe Charles Omenihu, what's better? Those three guys versus, one player in Trey Smith. The contract for George Karlaftis, they're going to try and get that done. Trent McDuffie needs to be a priority because if he hits the free agent market, oh my goodness, especially if he waits till after Sauce Gardner and Derek Stingley Jr. sign, that cornerback market, in my opinion, is about to explode. And if he waits, the money of 21, 22 mil per year might jump up to 25, 20. Like, I think there's going to be a large jump up in the cornerback market. I think the Chiefs just kind of missed the boat with the guard market. If you wanted to get this done, you should have done it sooner before Rob Hunt, but you didn't know. And then the guard market exploded the way it did. I guess that's my I don't know if it's pushback. It's just I want Trey Smith here in Kansas City, but I think paying top dollar just isn't in the cards. I don't know a way to make it fit outside of doing something like the Eagles did, which is just do a whole bunch of void years, or if Clark Hunt wants to pay a whole bunch up front. I just think it's going to be a little too difficult to get that money to make sense for KC.
Yeah, there's a comment here from Javier saying if the Eagles can pay their all-star team, we can too. It's a great comment, and it is a funny question to answer. Go look at the Eagles over the cap page. Have you done this yet, Stern? Did we do this last week? I can't remember.
I do know they have $390.4 million in void years, so that they're going to have to pay the piper.
So that'll come around eventually. The thing that's jarring on the 2025 salary cap here is that I'm going to give you some names with base salaries. Every single one of these base salaries is less than $1.25 million, or about $1.25 million at the top end, okay? $1 million and change base salaries for Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, Darius Slay, Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith, Bryce Huff, Saquon Barkley, Landon Dickerson, Jalen Carter, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Jake Elliott, Quinyon Mitchell, Nolan Smith. Actually, Nolan Smith at 1.8 there. We're getting into draft pick territory. They haven't restructured yet, right? All of that, what the Eagles do, and this is legal, this is above board, and this is about your owner. What the Eagles have done is that they have given out a lot of cash up front that then makes them very, very flexible in terms of the cap management. The Chiefs, with Clark Hunt, are not that kind of cash flexible. I'm not saying they can't be. I'm saying they are not. That Clark Hunt does not spend money this way. That the contracts do not get structured this way. That Patrick Mahomes' contracts have been a huge outlier, and thank God Clark Hunt signed on for those. But it is just a different game. The Chiefs are playing on a little bit of a higher difficulty level in terms of roster and cap management because they do not have this seemingly infinite cash budget they can use to move things around. Now, yes, eventually the Eagles are going to have some crazy cap hits, but what's going to happen when they get closer to those? They're going to restructure more of those. They may have some lean years. I'm not even telling you that this is the way you ought to do it. This is explaining how the Eagles have done something that the Chiefs have never even attempted to do. With all that being said, I agree. I wouldn't give Trey Smith the money that I think it's going to take to keep him if I was the Chiefs. It may make more sense, as you mentioned, for Chicago. You're desperately trying to protect Caleb Williams. Not that Trey Smith's pass protection is the calling card, but you're also kind of trying to build some stability in that offense. And your quarterback is on a rookie contract. So you have some more of that flexibility. The Chiefs could absolutely sign Trey Smith and then work around it. That is possible because that first year cap hit's not going to be very high. So they cut Joe Tooney next year and cut Juwan Taylor after next year. And then they get the Trey Smith numbers start coming in. But who's your left tackle? Who are you paying there? The other thing with both Smith and Bolton is what people to keep in mind is that the individual year cap hits, this is true for me too. It's easy to say, well, yeah, but I'd give Trey Smith $20 million to play for this team for one more year and kind of thinking in the franchise tag territory. You probably would. The problem is you are giving out these multi-year massive deals where then that player's performance becomes even more vital to you at every single step of the way, because you have gone from hoping that they're an impact player to heavily gambling on them being an impact player, really betting on what they're going to bring. So like one more year of Travis Kelce stretching out a $14 million cap hit or whatever, totally cool with that. But I wouldn't want to give Travis Kelce 4 for 52. You know what I, so like, it's obviously different because we're talking about young players versus the oldest guy on the team. But I understand why it's hard to walk away. I think when it comes to Trey Smith and Nick Bolton, we saw what they did. We saw their priority. It was Creed Humphrey in that draft class. I think that was wise. I think that was financially the right move. I think you got the best center in football as opposed to a top 5 to 10 guard and top 10 to 20 linebacker, maybe. But the value game is at the core of all of this. Trey Smith is one of the best 6th round picks you could ever hope to find, and I wouldn't want to pay him $25 million annually. He didn't change as a player in those evaluations. The cost did.
Yeah. I also see like Eagles got $100 million in 3 players. And again, why that's true, as Brisco broke down, a lot of that's not in the actual cap hit, which, by the way, Mahomes' cap hit jumps into the $60 million territory this year. Now, I would be beyond surprised if he played on the $63 million cap hit that it looks like it's going to be. That'll get restructured. But again, that's not a rookie deal. He's still going to be playing for around $40 million on a cap hit. It's going to be a lot. Chris Jones, look up that contract. Look up Jawan Taylor's and Joe Tooney's. The Chiefs just have built it a different way. Again, Jawan's is what, $27 million or something this year cap hit wise, and Joe Tooney's is not much farther behind that. So the Chiefs have been spending a lot of money. It's just not, again, they got the Jawan Taylor contract fairly wrong, is what it came down to, and that's more or less been the hindrance.
That's a good example, because if you drafted Jawan Taylor in the 4th round and you got what you've gotten out of him, it'd be a home run of a 4th round draft pick. You've got like solid right tackle play with some warts that probably would keep you from wanting to re-sign him when he hit free agency. When you're paying him $20 million a year, it's a disaster.
And again, the left tackle spot is still a very large looming situation that lays ahead for Kansas City. For me, I think the biggest situation and biggest player the Chiefs need to prioritize is actually Trent McDuffie. Again, I mentioned it. This is obviously earlier on. We're talking about, franchise tag, which for folks listening right now, the reason why you don't franchise tag Trey Smith, the franchise tag takes all of offensive line into account, okay? So Trey Smith's franchise tag includes left tackles. It's $25+ million for 1 year of Trey Smith, right? The Chiefs are not going to do that, and you don't tag and trade him. He's a guard, and they'll get a 3rd round back if he walks either way, right? So
end of the formula, but yeah,
end of the third. But
the other reason not to do that is that now you while the rest of the league is waiting for you to trade the franchise tag player that you have no money. Yes. They would have virtually nothing that they couldn't do anything until they traded Smith.
Exactly, and so you can't do that. It's fiscally nearly impossible. It's not how you would build a roster. So the Chiefs would not franchise tag Trey Smith. And then I've heard some people talk about, hey, well, what about Nick Bolton? Well, linebackers, the same thing. The NFL is dumb. The NFL has the linebacker franchise tag, including outside linebackers. So that means the major edge rushers. That means the Bosas. That means Micah Parsons. That means you name an edge rusher that has 19 sacks, 16 sacks, all those guys on those large deals. They are under the same umbrella as the coverage linebackers or the middle linebackers, aka Nick Bolton. So a guy who might get $12.5 million, $13 million, $14 million a year, and Nick Bolton, well, if you were to franchise tag him, that's $27+ million for 1 season. Again, that is just not going to happen. Something to just keep in mind right there. Any pushback?
No, I just to follow up on McDuffie. Not only is that a priority, like they have the most leverage with McDuffie of any that you can ever have over a really, really good player. And McDuffie has the leverage of being a really, really good player who's a great scheme fit and all of that. Like I saw Slothy mention like the 5th-year options a no-brainer. They should never have to see that.
Yeah, that's my
option
point.
Should never come into play.
That's my point. Yeah.
Get Trent McDuffie's extension should happen this offseason. George Karlaftis should not. Not that like just as a separation between the tiers of players that they are. I don't think Karlaftis would sign the contract I would offer him. I think McDuffie would. Like I'm playing fully. Like if I am Brett Veach, I am giving Trent McDuffie a deal that I think we can agree to that's going to keep him in Kansas City for the long haul. I'm going to go ahead and enjoy my 4th year of George Karlaftis on a rookie contract. His cap hit next year is already almost $4 million in 2025. Then he has a 5th-year option that you could, it's going to be a pretty decent sized number, but he has a 5th-year option that you could then use to either pay him for that year, pick up the option, and then use that time to negotiate or at least figure out your next steps. Because they have the 5th-year option on both of those guys since they're both first-round picks. But I don't need McDuffie to play any more football. I know the trajectory that I believe he's on. The fact that you do have 2 more years of full control, as you mentioned, also maybe trying to get in under those Sauce and Stingley contracts. I'm ready to get all of that done as quickly as possible. I think I'm going to wait and see on Karlaftis. I think the Chiefs are going to wait and see on Karlaftis, and I think Karlaftis is going to wait and see on the market. I think that one's just not going to happen yet.
Yeah, again, I think McDuffie is a priority. You and I agree there. Again, the earlier the better for McDuffie, again, just based on what I believe the other contracts that are going to be handed out to the other corners. You don't want to have to wait and get a wide receiver situation like remember when Tyreek Hill was going to sign here, and then all of a sudden Devontae said, well, I'm going to sign for this, and Tyreek goes, pump the brakes before I sign, now I want more. Right? You don't want to do that. Do I think Trent would do that? I don't know, but you want to
also offer him a tremendous amount of security in that. Like that's what he gets, right? As a huge bump and a ton of security. I think that one makes too much sense not to have happen very soon.
The one pushback I have on Karlaftis, and while I agree there are different tiers of players, I think for the Chiefs and what they've done and shown at the ability to draft, identify talent, trade for at edge has been not ideal, to put it mildly. It makes Karlaftis, I don't know if almost as valuable as McDuffie is the correct term, but to this team. Because if they did not have Karlaftis on this team, putting up the amount of snaps he has, where would this defensive line be? I mean, just truthfully speaking, Charles Omenihu, who we think is a good player, but he can't stay healthy or he's suspended.
You would have Mike Dana playing even more snaps and then Felix playing a lot more snaps. This is a perfect example for me of a very, very useful player who there's not a good answer to that question. If they did not have George Karlaftis, they would have done something. They would have tried to Melvin Ingram it again. You know, like there would be some guys like that would not have been as good as Karlaftis. My thing with him is that if he plays out this year and has a 12 sack season, he is looking at the free agent market with drooling. Because to get a big physical edge that can get sacks, and a lot of times he's the beneficiary of Chris Jones, but Karlaftis, of course, deserves credit in his own right. I think if he has another double-digit sack season, he might be a $20 million a year player next year. And I don't think that the Chiefs are giving him that right now. I don't think they should give him that right now. It's a big number. You're talking about trying to get elite players on those numbers. But if all Karlaftis does in his NFL career is get a little bit better every year, keep pulling down sacks and keep having huge showings in playoff games, he's going to make a ton of money that I don't think the Chiefs are going to be able to give when for me, there is I'm looking at like the average per year edge rusher contracts right now. There is a tier leap somewhere around that like $24 million mark, maybe, where you're trying to get Myles Garrett, you know? I don't think Karlaftis is ever going to be that guy. I also don't think he's ever going to be less than a really good football player. It puts him in one of those really tough ranges. I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up coming to a deal with Karlaftis, but I don't think it's going to be this offseason. I don't think Karlaftis wants it to be this offseason.
Yeah, you're probably right. I'm just very high on Karlaftis for this particular team because of the lack of other edges on this roster, and again, the inability it feels like at times to develop, draft, identify whatever it is, talent on that D line. Whether it's scheme, whether it's Joshua Uche, doesn't matter. It didn't work out. I mean, again, FAU will find out. FAU showed more flashes this year, which was nice to see, but still a very, very limited sample size from FAU. Again, he's still young. He's 23 years old. Something to at least keep in mind there. For folks wondering about the NFL Combine starts on Thursday. If you're looking at kind of a breakdown on schedule, Thursday is defensive linemen and linebackers. Friday is defensive backs and tight ends. Friday is always a fun one to watch. Saturday is QBs, wide receivers, and running backs. Also a very fun one to watch. And then Sunday, when no one's watching, it's offensive linemen as everyone's driving back. No one wants to see the offensive linemen do the 60-yard shuttle.
Can I respond to a comment on Karlaftis real quick? I think it's actually just like a very good little button on it from Sean. Because Karlaftis doesn't have to be a Strahan type guy with Chris Jones next to him. That's absolutely true. But that means you shouldn't pay him like he's Michael Strahan. You know what I mean? Like, if you say, hey, you're playing next to Chris Jones, you don't have to be a top 10 edge rusher. That's true. But that's also why I don't want to pay that guy like a top 10 edge rusher.
Yeah. By the way, we did not hit this at the top, and we should have, and that's on me. You watching any NBA there, Brisco? Because I've been watching some NBA. I know you're a big Suns guy down there.
Yeah, I'm a big Suns fan, so no, I haven't been watching.
Because this basketball season, call me Chris Paul in honor of when the Suns were at least decent.
You cut this lead down to 62 or whatever?
And I'm going to celebrate. We're giving you a nice assist, baby, because we're giving you an opportunity to win money from watching sports with Underdog. Underdog is one of the leading sports apps, and you can play now in your state. We'll get those states in just a moment. Do you want to win up to 1,000 times your money? You can with Underdog. Because I thought Briscoe was going to say, yeah, Sterling, I want to win up to 1,000 times my money.
I've been playing 2K because the Suns make me sad. But if anybody out there just wants to go over to Underdog and just take a bunch of lowers on Suns things, I'm guessing you'd probably fare pretty well. This isn't advice. I'm just sad.
Or anything lower on the Sixers, because I'm a Sixers guy and they are buns. But to play is not buns. To play is super easy. Just choose whether to play will go higher or lower on one of their stats: points, assists, rebounds. They've got all your favorite leagues, teams, and stars to choose from. You can play with as little as $1, and if you get everything right, you can win up to 1,000 times your money with your hoop knowledge. Again, big fan of Underdog. I love it for NBA personally. That's where I go.
Lakers Mavs tonight.
Gonna be electric. But by the way, must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama, Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Because further to play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncbgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE and Y. I've done better. I feel like I didn't enunciate as well as I should have. That's on me. We rebound, we bounce back, and we come back next time with a regrouping. So we can do that. At least I recognize that.
Because of that amount of reflection, I am not going to try to trade you for Anthony Davis.
Thank you. I know I'm a little chunky, so
yeah, we have concerns about your work ethic, but we're going to go ahead and.
I love how like the best players in all sports are like slightly chunky, and the Mavs are like, yeah, you know what? Screw it. We're gonna trade that guy. Like the Chiefs, like imagine the Chiefs, like, you know what, Patrick, you and Travis have had a little too many Coors Lights. That dad bod's out there. You're not looking like Trevor Lawrence, so we're actually gonna trade you for Trevor Lawrence.
Jalen Hurts, I think, probably has abs. Patrick, have you considered getting abs?
Yeah, it's like so. But then the Mavs are like, okay, well, that's a different sport. So let's go to baseball. Yeah, Prince Fielder absolutely raked and was chunky. Okay, and Miguel Cabrera and David Ortiz.
Sterling, come
okay,
up.
Let's go to another sport. Let's go to NBA. Let's go to our own sport. So
yeah, come up with one other NBA player who's like in the midst of, I think, maybe his third MVP campaign. His arms are flabbier than my cardigan right now.
Yeah, no chance that Nikola Jokic could be that good, being that out of shape, right? Oh no, he is. Okay, right. So let's go ahead and trade him for a guy who we think is out of shape for a guy who's always injured.
Just wish they would have called around, because like they could have gotten KD. I could have finally buried my Luka beef.
Yeah.
I guess that was the problem for Dallas too, was Luka beef.
Also, I love Sean saying Babe Ruth. Yeah, the most famous.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So we're done with the
baseball. Barely matters. Baseball barely counts. Like half of CC Sabathia was at his best, looking like a bowling ball up there, eating a whole box of Captain Crunch every day. I think he said, right.
But again, Underdog absolutely slaps. Use promo code Arrowhead Addict to get a special offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make that first deposit. So promo code Arrowhead Addict. All right. Let's get like one or two more questions in here before we hop out of here. I like this one from JCP 4000. Do you think the Chiefs will be capable of improving their offensive game plan significantly with the same coaching staff? That is a very good question. Brisco.
Yeah, it is a good question. It's obviously hard to answer on some level because we're all kind of like, I think you're asking because theoretically Sterling and I on a day-to-day basis get a little bit of a feel for kind of like how that stuff works behind the scenes, but there's still such a fog of all of that, right? Of like, man, I don't know. Like the Xavier Worthy developed really well this season. The wide receivers seemed to get better as they went. Did Connor Embry get a lot better in his second year in the wide receiver group after being much maligned last year? Or was DeAndre Hopkins extremely helpful to have with Marquez Valdez-Scantling now no longer in the locker room? Like, I really don't, I can't answer that. I'm giving you that one because it's one that I've thought about that I really don't know. Connor Embry got absolutely dumped on last year. And then Rashee Rice comes along and he doesn't get any credit. And Xavier Worthy comes along, he doesn't get any credit. So, but again, maybe that's DeAndre Hopkins and maybe Matt Nagy's a young receiver whisperer. I don't know.
By the way, I did give Connor Embry credit this year for that exact reason because everyone bleeped on him last year, and I go, we were hard on him. Let's give him credit when we've seen some emergence. Rashee Rice last year, Xavier Worthy this year, wide receiver group as a whole with all of the plethora of injuries surrounding them. If you're going to give him all the credit for when bad things happen, you kind of got to give him some credit when good things happen.
I agree with that. On the other hand, what does Todd Pinkston do? I'm kind of genuinely asking. Like, we heard from him maybe once all year, if even. And I don't know if his position group improved at any point throughout the year. So anyway, all that to say, I think the bigger questions is probably schematic, talking about Matt Nagy and Andy Reid and all of that. I will say on one hand that I try to also, as a rule, Andy Reid gets the majority of the credit when things go well. I try to also give him a majority of the blame when things go poorly because Matt Nagy doesn't get credit when the offense looks good. He gets blame when it looks bad. Eric Bieniemy was the same way. Doug Peterson was the same way. It's kind of how it always works. Assistant coach / like backup quarterback phenomenon. The reason that I think the answer is yes in terms of JCP's original comment about like can they improve? Can the game plan improve? I think the game plans will improve. And I hope it doesn't seem like excuse making. But as we mentioned at the top of the show, offensively, they went through plans A through like F in 2 weeks. They went through plans F through U the rest of the season, fittingly enough. They were on plan Z in the Super Bowl. So when you have a complete change at your wide receiver position, you lose your number 2 wide receiver at worst. Your 1A or 1B, I should say. You lose wide receiver 1B on the first play of the preseason. It's effectively out for the year. You lose wide receiver 2 in the 3rd week of the season on a freak play that will live in infamy. He's lost for the entire season. Your left tackle plan is completely uprooted before week 2 has finished and continues to be a problem through the rest of the year. There are lots of issues they do bear responsibility for. There are lots of things they do need to improve on. Patrick Mahomes did not play his best football, certainly in the Super Bowl, obviously. We saw it later in the year, but like he was kind of rebuilding the plane in the air at times. The entire offense was rebuilding the plane in the air constantly. So I think in a situation where I want to give them credit for getting a battered offense to the Super Bowl, but also want to blame them for how bad it looked in the Super Bowl, I think I have to give them credit for getting a lot out of the pieces they ended up using. I think when the pieces are a little bit better, the result will be a little bit better, but that is not guaranteed. So that's the other side of the coin for me. I don't know if Hollywood will be back. I don't know if Rashee Rice is going to look like the same guy. I don't know if he's going to be healthy. I don't know if
do you think he might get a haircut or something? Or
I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be as explosive with as high of a ceiling as we saw the first couple weeks of the year. The ACL, the suspension, maybe a haircut, whatever it's going to be. I don't know, and neither do they at this point. So the offensive line's probably going to be different. I don't know if it'll be worse or not because, again, left tackle was a mess all year. So I give them, again, I'm repeating myself now, but I give them credit for making some pretty good food out of a pretty limited pantry of ingredients. but also by the time we got to the end of the year, I wanted some more sophisticated flavors for the final big dinner of the season.
Yeah, you were tired of chicken nuggies and hot dogs.
Right. I was impressed that you're making chicken nuggets and hot dog out of chicken bleep and dog turds. But I'd like a little plating in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. And I think what it comes down to as well is Patrick, as you mentioned, didn't have his best season. His worst in the NFL this year. And I think part of it we can also put to, I've talked about it on multiple episodes. So I don't want to dig into it too deep again. I just think he is overthinking. I think he's no longer trusting his instincts, and full off season, get right, get Patrick back to being Patrick and doing the incredible things we have seen him do year after year after year. And he was against the Bills, by the way, he was phenomenal in that game. We know it's still in there. We know it's not regression. I just think it's a little bit of in his dome. Just at least a little bit, but we have all offseason to talk about that. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us. Been a fun little Tuesday, a nice little Tuesday on this February 25th. Weather is getting warm here in KC. That means almost time to go out there and hit the sticks. Brisco, final thoughts.
Next time we get up over, it's 65 right now. It's really wet and muddy outside. I got to drop some seeds out there, try to fix this grass. It's gonna be a little spring project for me, but maybe one of these days I'll go ahead and I'll take the whole setup outside. I'll do a little patio Tuesday. I feel like that would really fit the vibe that we're bringing here. Just outdoors, you're hearing the birds chirping. I think that's what we're gonna need, is a little palate cleanser in the off season.
I love that. I'll join you. I have a hammock that will get set up at some point, and we will do a fun little Tuesday show. Until next time, everyone, this is Sterling Holmes, Josh Brisco, Richard behind the glass. I'll be back tomorrow with Adam Best. Until then, your dogs?
No, I'm saying Richard's back there. He's on the other side. People can't tell. I keep him in my basement.
Yeah. We're out on that.
We are out.